you learn so much by going through tough times, whether it's losing someone or choosing to destroy yourself or locking into a training program for a certain amount of time. Like when you sacrifice things and you see the result at the end, just fucking do it. Yeah, there's too much wishy-washiness around. There's too much, I think when people speak things, it's almost like they've done it already. If I say I'm going to do this, like if I say I'm getting up early to train tomorrow, you've almost told your brain that you've done it already. So you've given yourself the reward because you've seen or dreamt of yourself doing something. But nothing is better than action. And you just have to do it. When I did that first marathon, I think I decided a few weeks before, there was no training program. I never had a training program for basically anything I've done. I've made up everything along the way. I now actually have a coach for this next one because I'm going for a record. But you just have to lock something in, like book whatever event it is, make sure it's scary enough that it's close that you should give yourself some action. And if you don't do the training beforehand, still go and do the event. Because you can make it through. If someone put a gun to your head and was like, if I was like, Mike, go and run a marathon right now, or put it to someone you love said, and I was like, go and run a marathon right now, you'd do it. So why do you need all these perfect things to happen? And I experienced it on the UK run. Afterwards, I was sad. I was like, it's like, what's happening? I've just done something like really big and really cool. And now I feel sad. But it's because you have this very intense period of time where your sole mission, it's not like day-to-day life where you got emails to do. Your sole mission is to run every day a certain distance. You also have people around you helping you, so you've got like a bigger team or like a family that are there. And you also get heightened like interest in you and what you're doing and why. So you have all this stuff going on, people talking about you, blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, you have the pinnacle and then it falls off, as it should do. But if you don't recognize that that's going to happen, then it can suck. I was like giving myself a pre-agreement of go enjoy yourself. And so after I finished that thing, I was just like traveling around on holiday, partying, whatever. And I never the next day regretted what I'd done. Because I'd given myself grace beforehand to just enjoy life for a minute and not put pressure on saying what I was going to do next or training for the next thing. It was just like, go do whatever. And I had no like fall off blues. I was like, life's sick. I'm trying to do the most with my time and not regret not doing something. I was never like pushed in any real hard direction. Like my parents weren't at exam season being like, no, you need to be in your room and you need to revise. I actually did all right, but I was never pressured. So I always felt this sense of freedom. My grandma traveled a lot. She was always like, she'd go to Japan or she'd be in Canada and she'd come back with all these stories. So I was like, wow, the world is bigger than my little town of Ampthill. So I wanted to experience that. And then also having this almost like safety net of freedom of like, parents have a house. I always get fed there. So maybe I can like take risks, go and travel and do stuff, come back with nothing, and I'll still have this security thing. So yeah, I felt a wild sense of, or a big sense of freedom from being young. It's fun when you're young. It's loose, and also like scraping the barrel, or like I ran up a load of credit card debt into my mid-20s, but I don't know, that's the time to do it, man. You don't want to be doing it when I'm not saying don't try. If you're 35 and thinking about it, still go for it. Do whatever the fuck you want. But yeah, there's something about that thing of being like early 20s and making it happen and figuring out along the way, like getting a bar job for a week and then being like, well, I've got 300 quid here. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to backpack to Taiwan or some shit. I don't know. But I think it's exciting. I think I had 25, 30 grand on credit cards when I was 26. And I slowly paid that off till like I was 28. I'm 30 now. So the ironic thing is, I said I'm a maximizer, right? So everyone has seen my life. Well, not everyone. Sorry, people have seen my life since Instagram kind of begun. But from being 21, 22 and splitting my time between London, LA, New York, everyone's always been like, wow, you're doing so well. You're doing amazing. How do you do this? And it's one of those things like you being on Marbella, you figure it out. And I was always maximizing, but for a large period of time, I had imposter syndrome because people assumed I was doing really well, but I wasn't. So I'd be like, I don't know how to interact with this conversation, because you're telling me how great I am and I'm doing really well, and you're jealous of my life, but I don't actually have the things you think I do. People ask me, like, even now, like, how do you do this like runfluencer space thing? And I'm like, dude, before anyone gave a fuck about running, I was doing this UK run. No one knew what ultra marathons were. And then lockdown happens, and for some reason now everyone's super interested in running. So they're looking for someone that's doing what they do, that's on the platform, so they can learn or just enjoy the content, because now they're into running. Because I had done it before, I was a natural choice for some people to follow. So my profile rose with the interest in running. So I was lucky to ride that wave. So there's no formula to what I did. And also there's still not really a formula to what I do. I just go and do what I want to do. And somehow it's still working out and people are interested, and I'm following my passion. So I don't feel obliged to go and do anything. Like, I'm generally doing what I want to do. And the outcome for me is not more followers or more money in the bank or whatever. It's, I'm exploring life and doing these incredible things that I can only experience by pushing myself to the absolute limits. There's no cheat code to get there. And everyone wants to know like a play-by-play thing to get to that point, but there's not really a play-by-play thing for basically anything, unless you want to be college educated and become a doctor or whatever you need to be college educated for. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is all made up. This is all new. Like, there's certain things I guess you can do to get there, but yeah, it's made up, and I'm just fortunate enough to be dancing along the line and continuing to go whatever. I'm not actually scared of aging. Not at all. Like, I see some of the coolest people in the world, to me anyway, are old people, like De Niro. Yeah. The older he gets, the cooler he gets. Did you hear of the prophecy that Chris Williams? I remember Chris Williamson saying it about the Mexican fisherman. I'm gonna absolutely butcher this, by the way, but this American guy from Wall Street goes on holiday to, let's say he goes to Baja. He's in Mexico, or whatever, and there's this Mexican fisherman there. He sees him go out every day, kind of just watches him, is intrigued by the guy. Goes out in the morning, comes back with a few fish, and then kind of disappears. And then he sees him again in the evening with his family, eating one of the fish he's caught. He goes up to him as a very business-minded guy, and he's like, "Sir, I've been watching you for a few days. You go out for a few hours in the morning, you come back, you disappear, and then I see you with your family at night eating one of the fish." He's like, why don't you sell all the fish? In fact, why don't you start earlier, fish all day, and then go and sell your fish to the local thing, and then you can expand business. Like, you'll get enough money to buy another boat, you can hire someone else, and then that can expand to having a fleet of ships, and then you can fish in other towns and other areas in the world, and then you can be like John West, tuna, be on Wall Street and be worth like 100 million. And then think of the freedom you'd have when you decide to call it quits and you sell out and you get 100 million. He asked the fisherman, he's like, what would you do if you had all this freedom and had all that money? He's like, I'd wake up late, I'd go out, fish to catch something for me and my wife that dinner. I'd come back, I'd have a nap in the day, siesta. And then it's the thing of the simple life is almost so beautiful from what we're trying to attain. And there's this middle part of life where we think we have to acquire, work our asses to the bone, leave it all out there just to get the simple life you always kind of wanted anyway. But it's interesting. I'm not saying like get away from like the hustle of trying to make shit, but also don't hold so much stress and worry about doing all this shit, because if you think about what really makes you happy, it's actually more simple than you think. And people are like, well, it's easy for you to say because you're successful, whatever, you could go and do that. But if you're from a Western country, the UK, America, Australia, whatever, even France, Italy, you're doing better than most of the world, right? You can even go, how cheap is barley? You can find your spot it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. In fact, it probably is not going to cost you a lot at all. But are you going to be happy there? Or are you going to be happy complaining about how you have a 9 to 5 and you're working too hard and you're stressed all the time and you've got a mortgage and all this other stuff that we get channeled into telling us this is what you do in life? You go to university, whatever, you get a job, you buy a house, you get a mortgage, you're paying that off for the next 25 to 30 years, if not longer. You have kids, you then have to support them, do their lives, and then before you know it, you've retired and you're like, now I want to go and live that life. And you probably can, but why can't you do that earlier or do it all along the way? Yeah, you can get some cool shit, like it's nice to have a nice watch, and as any young man kind of does, like thought of buying your fast Rolex, you're like, wow, this is sick to be able to do this. And it is a cool thing to be able to do. Like I was well excited when I got mine. I was like, wow, I've actually done something that's allowed me to do this. But it's just a thing. I don't have anything in my life that if I lost it right now, other than people, obviously, I have no physical possession that if I didn't have it now, I would be remotely bummed out after about 10 minutes, because I just give myself that conversation of, does it really fucking matter? And it doesn't.